the big picture about the changing dynamics. You had seen Bangladesh, you had seen Sri Lanka, and you had seen Nepal. How are the recent shift in Bangladesh, Myanmar, and Nepal shaping both the security and economic future of the India's Northeast, sir?
Good morning and namaskar to everyone. Firstly, thanks to Pratidin Times for giving me this opportunity here. I think the Northeast borders is strategically extremely important for our country for various reasons, and more so in the changing dynamics that has been happening all over the globe in recent years. The regime changes in Bangladesh, the continued turmoil in Myanmar, as well as the recent regime change in Nepal has an impact in our country, but more so in the Northeast. Because if you look at the Northeast borders, firstly, they are porous borders. There has been traditional migration, which has at times caused social stress within some parts of the Northeast. We all are familiar with that. Another recent regime changes, coupled with the world geopolitical dynamics and the rising fundamentalism, which compounds the existing ethnic fissures within the Northeast and its neighborhood, makes the situation extremely complex. And this is further compounded by the unresolved borders and certain long festering insurgencies which has been going on in the Northeast as also in the neighborhood. So security is of prime importance because we all know that Northeast is the least integrated and one of the least developed areas in our country and in the neighborhood. And for developmental activities to take place, for Northeast to catch up with the rest of the country, peace and security along the borders as well as internally is sine qua non. So it's a mandatory requirement. Only then the developmental activities can take place. So we need to look at our borders. The disputed borders need to be resolved. The long-running ethnic insurgencies need to be resolved, and we need to find some sort of, resolution for those insurgency movements. We need to look at our neighborhood in a more pragmatic and in a more nuanced manner, because any development in these states, these countries, particularly in Bangladesh, Myanmar, as well as Nepal and Bhutan and in China, definitely impacts the Northeast. We all keep talking about the vulnerable Siliguri corridor, which is the lifeline to the Northeast. The demographic changes that are taking place and increasing footprints of some of the inimical countries may at any point of time threaten to cut off Siliguri corridor, whether physically or in a hybrid mode. That is something to be seen.
No, I have a specific question on that, sir.
Yeah.
I'll keep it for the thing because that's very important thing, because I remember you had said they used to spend sleepless night in Fort William for that 22 kilometer of corridor. I have a specific question. I'll follow it a little later.
Okay. I think for peace and development, we need to resolve the borders. We need to find some solution to the ethnic insurgency problems that are going on. And we need to also concentrate on the socio-economic development of this region. We need to focus on the infrastructure development, particularly in the border areas, so that the threats can be mitigated. We need to empower the border guarding forces so that the necessary action can be taken. And we need to make the border infrastructure smarter by incorporating AI and the other technological developments that are taking place all across the globe. I think I'll leave it for now. And
I'll come back to you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, General. First of all, I congratulate you for beating the Sunday traffic and reaching Dr. Singh, Mr. Singh, and on time, because you almost missed it because of the traffic. Same question to you, sir. How this regime change and the tectonical change of geopolitics over the last few months around the South and Southeast Asia will have impact in the Northeast India, especially Nepal, Bangladesh, even Myanmar. Things are now all changing. I believe China has now stopped giving support to Northern Burma groups. So that is something interesting. And Myanmar is going for an election. So altogether, I would love to know your comment on the Northeast India's effect to these things.
Thank you very much, sir. And my sincere apologies. I just came from the University of Delhi. So I live near the university. So I thought that I will take only just half an hour, but it took almost 1 hour. So that was the problem. So it's a very relevant question because the Northeast, the states of the Northeast being surrounded by various countries. So there are international borders. So these borders serve as at the same time, the opportunities and the challenges for India in general and the Northeast in particular. So this is the one thing. And another thing, what we have been seeing in Sri Lanka and in then till therefore yesterday in Nepal and in Bangladesh, the question here is what are the aspirations and the expectations of the youth populations. Because now what we see is that in many countries, especially in the countries around our neighborhood, what we have seen is that there is a lots of discontentment among the youth. There are problems related to employment, unemployment, particularly that affects lots of young people, lots of educated people. So as a result of that, what we have seen in, say, in Nepal and then as well as in Bangladesh also, many of these movements were all led by the young people, educated people. So likewise, in our northeastern states also, what we see is that there is a very similar, the situation in terms of the availability of employment opportunities. And also now the educated people, the young people. So there is this frustrations among the young people, and this frustration is also becoming a very important for many of the so-called insurgents, the movement in the region. So therefore, I'm really concerned that what is happening in other part of, say in Bangladesh or in Nepal will have, some, problem, especially because there are discontentment among the youth in the Northeast. So this is number one point. The number 2 point is that, say, our immediate neighborhoods like, Bangladesh, the problem that we have seen in the last, some months ago. So many of these problems will have, repercussion in the Northeast. Say, when we talk about the trafficking of the people, the smuggling of the people, and also the issue of unauthorized movement of peoples. And also nowadays in, say for instance, in Myanmar, many of you must be aware about lots of problems happening in that country. So as a result of that, because of lots of bloodshed and the violence, so many people are being displaced from that country, and many are coming to the the northeastern states in Manipur or say in Mizoram and maybe in other states. So this is also again creating internal conflict. Say in the northeast also, since there are different ethnic communities, so our perceptions towards various issues always divides the peoples. So the issue of people coming into from Myanmar also or from Bangladesh divides the people of the northeast in one sense. At the same time, there are also, some people are also united. So this unites and divides, creates lots of conflicting situations. So this will have lots of problems for the, the northeast region. So
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Singh. Coming to Dr. Mirza Zulfikar Rahman, you being the man you yourself call it the borderland. My question is, with China expanding its role across Southeast Asia, how should India balance security with economic cooperation of the region?
Thank you, Minalda, for the question, and thank you, Pratidin Time, for inviting me to this August gathering. We are in a very difficult neighborhood. In Northeast India is one of the most international neighborhood, and also a very important pivot in what we see as the extension to the Indo-Pacific. So in that sense, the how India and China look at the borders in this larger region would matter a lot in how India's own policies shape up, and also how China's interest in, for example, in Myanmar and Bangladesh shape up. We have seen a lot of transformation in the past few years within Northeast India in terms of connectivity, in terms of development. But a lot of this connectivity and development would not mean anything if it cannot open up to the proximate neighborhood. We see a lot of problems that we also, in terms of Myanmar, the conflict situation in Myanmar, and the conflict situation in Bangladesh, which is actually preventing us from meaningfully opening up the borders, while China has been able to actually do that in some ways in Myanmar and Bangladesh. So I feel that, in sense that Northeast India is very well poised, because the strength of Northeast India is also its communities. And we should not see the communities as, kind of isolated, but we are connectors to the larger international neighborhood. The communities of Northeast India has a rich history and a lot of goodwill in the past in terms of transboundary communities. So in that sense, especially with Bhutan, especially with Myanmar, and we see the case in Manipur, for example, Mizoram, so and Nagaland as well. So these communities actually can be seen as the cultural connectors. And then actually that is what China is also doing. The para-diplomacy that is happening by China in Myanmar is actually based on these cultural connectors that they are using, leveraging. So we should also leverage those, and then I think that could actually make those openings meaningful for us.
Just a follow-up question to you, that is about opening up. Should India keep distancing itself from Bangladesh now, or should open up for more business?
I feel that Bangladesh is one country that actually can take us into a kind of, from being landlocked, what we always think traditionally of being landlocked, to being land-linked. And that's the kind of thing that we open up to have a separate access from the Siliguri corridor. And the Kaladan multimodal project that also passes through Mizoram and goes into Myanmar is also very, very strategic. But because of the conflict that is there in Arakan, we have not made progress. But we also have to see the layers of borders, how borders also operate in various layers. One is the political layer, but the other layer is the ecological layer. A lot of the ecological interdependencies that we actually share with our neighborhood will also mean a lot in terms of future migration patterns, future environmental disasters. And not only political factors can actually determine this kind of influxes and outflows, but also environmental. So I just wanted to propose this understanding that before nation-state borders came in, This larger neighborhood was a bioregion and an eco-region. And we also need to actually put in effective policies to actually manage the ecological layer as well. I'll just put that as a submission.
Coming to General, I vividly remember you had once mentioned, while I was also present in that occasion, when you were asked that what made you sleepless when you were sleeping in Fort William as the commander of the entire eastern region. You said about Doklam. I said about this corridor. You had one side in the north, Doklam, and another side is the northern in Bangladesh. The distance is about roughly about 100 kilometers, and 22 kilometers is actual boundary. Strategic, communication, defense, everything is about 22 kilometers. How serious the problem is? Because we don't visualize for a normal citizen, unlike you, that Doklam is not far away. That means China and Bangladesh is actually a distance of only about roughly about 100 kilometers separating between two countries.
You see, when you look at Northeast geographically, the Northeast shares 90% of its borders with 5 different countries, and only 10%, which is through the Siliguri corridor, the Northeast is linked to the balanced part of the country. So that 22 kilometers, which is the narrowest, and otherwise it opens up to about 100 kilometers, that's the basic lifeline of Northeast. Just to put some figures, on a daily basis, there are about 11 to 12 lakhs of vehicles which goes into Northeast through the Siliguri corridor and raising a revenue of about 142 crores per day. So that's the sort of movement which take place through Siliguri corridor. And the alternate connectivity which we are trying to establish, whether through Myanmar by the Kalatan Multimodal Transport Project, or through Chittagong port and then to Akhura and connecting towards Tripura, through Bangladesh or through Myanmar, are largely dependent on the situation in Myanmar and Bangladesh, which in the present circumstances is not at all conducive. So these alternate routes not having opened up, Siliguri corridor is extremely important to us because, and if we see the increasing footprints of China all around the narrow Siliguri corridor, in 2017 there was a 73 days standoff between Indian and Chinese forces at Doklam. Primarily, the Chinese forces were trying to come sudden towards closer to the Siliguri corridor. We also see a lot of developmental activities in garb of infrastructure development in eastern Nepal, particularly in Koshi-Mesi corridor. They are creating Japak economic corridor where a lot of Chinese presence is there, which just is located north of the Siliguri corridor. Even in northern Bangladesh, which is the southern part of the Siliguri corridor, we find in Rangpur division, there are increased, Chinese infrastructure projects that are being undertaken. After the regime changes, we also heard that Second World War vintage airport, that's Lalmonir Hat, which is hardly any distance from the Siliguri corridor, being handed over to Chinese for development.